Okay. I was supposed to be, well, the criteria for being up here was supposed to be that you were passionate. I'm not a particularly passionate guy, but I stumbled on this really great idea at a convention I went to, and I've been trying to talk to people about it ever since, and I've got a chance to do that here, so that's great. So I work in social housing. I've been doing it for 30-odd years. And I'm well aware that social housing is not necessarily well perceived by the general population. There's a widespread perception that it's a bunch of people living off the system, and that's really unfortunate because a lot of people get stuck in social housing for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons is the hardships that brought them to social housing in the first place. But another reason is that it's kind of structured in such a way that it kind of keeps you there. If you are a social housing tenant and you get a part-time job, then your rent not only does Revenue Canada come after you for the extra money that you're now earning, but social housing comes after you big time. In fact, we take more than Revenue Canada does. You'd think, like the way the system works is essentially you pay your rent based on what your income is. So that sounds fair kind of when you move in, and it sounds like it makes sense, but it becomes a big disincentive because as your income increases, you get your Canada revenue taken away from you, and plus people in social housing don't tend to start out with much, so they tend to need to, they have a lot of employment costs, even just getting themselves clothes, getting themselves transportation, and so on and so on. So that's another cost that they have to bear. And then we take 30 cents off every dollar that they earn from, where they started. So we're keeping them down here. And that's unfortunate. What if we were to take that extra 30 cents on every dollar that we're charging them in increased rent when their income goes up and put it in a bank account for them where they could access that at some later point? We would be assisting them in building assets that they could use for, so essentially, it's a kind of forced savings program. As your income goes up to whatever extent you get to keep some of it, you don't just blow it, in a slightly better way than you used to. But you've kind of got this enforced savings program, and you'd have to sign on to this program, and the conditions are that you have to agree to sign on for 5 years. The money is never in your immediate sort of, you can't access it immediately. It's put in an escrow account for you. You get some financial literacy training, and you get a financial coach who works with you in figuring out how you can make the best use of this money. So this program has existed in the States for a while, and in some places it's worked really well. There's one delivery area in Massachusetts where they're claiming that 30% of the people that participate in this program end up owning a house, which sounds pretty impressive. For a lot of people, it's a matter of first getting out of debt and then maybe, some training that might enable them to make a little more money somewhere else. So this is a program, obviously. Okay, so tenant signs. Oh, good. All right. So this actually does generate a fair bit of money because I need this thing to speed up for.
For some reason they didn't advance. I'm sorry. Where do you want to be?
I want to be there. Okay. Case one. Can you go back one? Okay. So if we look at, you know, this case here, this is someone who's gone from working part-time to full-time at minimum wage. So not a whole lot of money, right? But if they go from part-time to full-time at minimum wage, us good people in social housing, we charge them $293 a month extra in rent. I sort of think of that as being like the rent tax. So if we are putting aside that extra $293 a month into a savings, into a escrow account, that comes up to $3,516 in a year and $17,580 over 5 years, which is the period of the agreement that you enter into. So that's a fair bit of money to make use of. I can sort of skim through the next ones, but so case 2 is going.
Oh, I gotta hook you.
Okay.
I'll give you an extra, so give him a row.
Thanks very much.
We'll do, just to be fair, we'll give him a way less than time with the slides, so it'll get very responsible.
Okay, well, I got one more thing to say too before questions. I've got a few copies of the presentation if anybody wants one. Okay, because there's some important points at the end there.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Ralph.
Questions?
I don't know why the slides didn't move forward properly. My apologies.
No problem.
I'll give you the lecture, don't worry.
Yeah.
I'll give you extra. Any questions, Rob? Yes, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if you have a voluntary program like this in place already,
No.
where people can volunteer to do it? Because it seems to me you have a very good partner standing on stage with you. in terms
Well,
of
I thought that
financial
too. Yeah.
coaching and-
Yeah. Yep, well, that's, you know, I'm planning to lean on them and see if we can.
Ironically enough, Ralph and I have had this conversation already, which is kind of cool. So he has presented this idea to myself, and Libro has jumped on board with him, offering him some assistance and even some staff to help with some education pieces to it. So again, it's all working together, right?
Wouldn't just a regular RRSP take care of that would reduce your net
The-
income?
Would
The
a
problem-
regular RSP work?
The problem is the rent, okay? What has to change is that the tenant pays the increased amount of rent, but it's gotta accrue to them rather than to us. So that's where the money comes in, right? Like, so that's a loss in rental income for us that's gotta come from somewhere. It's gotta either come from some philanthropy, you know, of some kind, or the city has to be willing as our funder to absorb that loss of rent. So, you know, it's not just about encouraging people to have more effective financial practices individually, because we're actually funding a process that, and we're using those funds as a means of kind of inducing them to get involved in that kind of thing.
Thanks, Ralph. Thank you, guys. Again, afterwards,
Okay.